Welcome to Caribou Weather Dude YouTube channel. I'm Joey Olney, the Caribou Weather Dude. That's me right here, sitting in my seat of infinite knowledge at 3,953 feet above sea level here in the Caribou Mountains in the beautiful valley of Wells and Barkerville. Looking at around, of course, many of you know I've spent a lot of my life being a contract firefighter. I'm a weather specialist, and I have unique points of view that you will not find anywhere else on the internet regards to fire behavior. And keep in mind, I'm gonna go a little simpler this time and teach you a bunch of stuff about fire conditions right now in Western Canada. I don't always keep it as simple as I should for you all. Keep in mind that some of my sponsors on the channel, people who join the Patreon and whatnot, are owners of contract wildland fire crews or crew leaders. I also have a lot of people who work in wildfire services in Canada who follow me. So they're looking for my take on fire behavior because it's accessible, right? So that's what we're here to do today, talk about some of the fire conditions in Western Canada right now. Okay, let's go.
There it is. This is bad news. My God. Anything can happen. Yeah! I'll watch the video later. They dry up in this.
Now, the good news across Western Canada today is this cloud cover. Cooler temperatures coming down the bottom side of this big low. We're not going to talk forecast too much, though. I made a forecast video last night for you all. So we're going to talk more about fire conditions today explicitly. But as you can see, fire conditions are down a little bit because, although it's quite windy in the bottom side of this low, responsible for this blow up, it appears at Lowdown. It appears like something's happened there unless there's some weird data malfunction. But I would expect this area below the low to be quite windy. Seeing minimal growth on a lot of other fires, and I think that's because the cloud cover, right? So the cloud cover is keeping things cooler, keeping the sun off the fire. The fires will respond. I mean, I tell you, how many times I've seen an area that's like smoking just a little bit and the sun comes out and gets on it and suddenly it's popping out of the ground. And then we hit, on a regular fire weather day, hit 30 Celsius and we see that crossover condition when the humidity comes down to 30%. And next thing you know, fires are in the trees and running. That's how she tends to go. So I'm a little bit concerned about this guy at Lowdown just showing a lot of activity. But certainly I would suggest that fire growth is attached to these winds. We got 54 steady at Key Lake Airport, gusting to 80. Oh, man, that means Lynn Lake's not far behind. Let's get a little closer in here and see if we can get a few more weather stations on board. Lowdown, 61 kilometer an hour gusts of wind. So that's why that fire is moving, I would suggest. 57 at Buffalo Narrows, down at Meadow Lake, reading 54 kilometer gust, 36 steadies. Cold Lake, Alberta is getting 67 kilometer hour gust measured, 40 kilometers steady. Nipawin, 54 kilometer gust, 29 steady. The Paw, what about the Paw? Ooh, 47 kilometer steadies, 76k gust. Flin Flon, 48 kilometer hour gusts there going on. Thompson, 56 kilometer hour gusts. This is bad stuff. Split Lake, 39. So look at the direction the wind's going. Look where fire behavior is going to be pushed in this afternoon here. 41 at Norway House, gusts there measured. That's strong winds. That's strong winds. Everything a little bit calmer down to where our fire is by the Ontario border, right? So a little bit calmer, some precip moving through there. Some of that precip that we hope would come north, some of it actually is making a little bit more way. So southern Manitoba getting a bit of a blessing there, but not so for all these places up to the north. Really bad, really bad, really bad. And this afternoon there, we're looking still 20-degree temperatures across the board there, and we know, I shouldn't say 20s, I should say between 15 and 20 across the board. So that's active fire weather in the sense that the humidex levels are very low. The humidex values are very low out through all there right now as well. So fires are burning, but we got some cloud cover at least that's helping. At least a little bit of this cloud cover is helping keep the sun off these fires. There is that. Other fires in the area today showing a little bit of growth on this one flank here over the last 24 hours since last night. There's been one change. This seems to have branched out more as well. And then we've seen that apparently it's taken a run. This is what I've been concerned about for a while. I've been talking about this. Flin Flon is in the crosshairs of Wolf. So they've seen minimal fire activity around the town of Flin Flon in the last 24 hours. But look how far this guy has already run. We'll hit the distance measure. But we're down to 20, I'm going to say 22 to 25 kilometers probably between Flin Flon and the fire's edge now. That's, we were at 40 just 5 days ago. right? So I think I'm being proven correct on this one, that this is a real concern. This guy is coming. This guy's coming. It's in wilderness area. It's harder to fight. The resources aren't there right now, and it's like Flin Flon, you may win this one battle, but you're still at risk. On the north flank, we're seeing some activity in recent scans, either the most recent scans. That's the other thing you got to keep in mind is each time that we do this, you're going to find that the scan might be a little bit different, right? The scan might be a little bit different. So just because we're seeing something in one of these scans doesn't mean that's the story. You know, again, like the officials are the only ones that have the full details on what's going on in those fires. I'm not here to freak you out too much, but here to show you what weather has in connection. We've seen this fire's taken a big run today. That's not very good. Over here, we got a big run that's happened. That's a big run, so some massive growth on a couple of these flanks here, and some big-time growth in the last 24 hours we seem to have missed. It seemed like the wind did have some impact. It did have some impact. Wolf took a run. So we've seen some fires take a run yesterday. Seen some activity up here that's fresh around Puckatawagan. So its fire's taking a run away from town. That's kind of more where we want to see that one going. That's nice. What about our friend up here? Lynn Lake, a lot of activity near town today when we didn't see as much last night. So, I mean, every time we look at the scan, we're going to see something a little bit different. Split Lake showed a fair bit of growth at Split Lake yesterday. Again, just from what we're seeing from cloud cover, what we're seeing over in Manitoba, cloud cover, and then you see Saskatchewan. You can see where the smoke is. There's still a fair bit of smoke, so there's definitely some fire activity. Looks like Wolf has really kicked up a lot in this radar image. I'm not sure, or a satellite image. I don't know how old the satellite image is. It could be a number of hours, so bear that in mind. We're seeing a lot of activity at J. Smith. So I think these ones have really been hitting into the wind today. Looking at a lot of activity on this guy, Pissou. And then Saskatchewan is on fire. Here you go by Montreal Lake. The Saskatchewan sign itself just happens to be on the fire. I mean, you've seen that one's taking a run this way. Here's a prediction I should make that I think is reasonable too. What's the distance now between this guy and our shoe campfire? Less than 20 kilometers probably. So this run that this one's taken has now brought it closer. Why do I mention that? It's still running to the north as well, and maybe over 20 kilometers up to this guy. But there's a chance it's early in the season, and if we don't see some game-changing thing happen in the weather, which as we looked at in the forecast, there's none. There's no game-changing thing happening anytime soon. No big systematic pattern change that's going to suddenly dump plenty of water on these guys anytime soon. So for at least the next little while, they're going to keep growing and burning actively. Is there a possibility that these, will it be these two that already merged? Will these two also somehow merge with it in time? It's possible. This is running to the north. So Larange, I'm getting more and more concerned about you. Larange, yeah, that's where Hurricane Harley was born. My good buddy I played a lot of concerts with. A little concern for the long-term prospects of your Larange if we don't see some change happening around here. Cross Lake there, seeing some activity around Gempeg. You know, again, we can't really guess what the square, we can see that they're there. There's been some heat measurements in the last 24 hours. That doesn't necessarily mean we have all the details. Sometimes you see, like, I don't know this, for example, but this is a possibility. At Split Lake last night, there was like a flank that was really showing a lot of heat. And it's not out of the question that they were doing some night burning there. I'm not saying that happened. I have no knowledge of that, but that's just an example too, where like you might see something really close to town, be like, oh my God, look at, and maybe not take into consideration that that's an active fire op that's going on. There's like a helicopter dropping fire drops, basically. I showed in a video before, or it could be guys with drip torches, or it could just be the wind causing it. So, we don't want to guess in a lot of cases what is going on and why. But as you can see, there's been some uptick in fire activity in some of these fires. There's been some spreading on some of them. There's been some growth towards the east on some of them. So we have seen that wind translate into more growth than we were seeing last night in our firm's images. But we have a lot of major fires in Western Canada right now, all along that southern edge of the boreal forest, running right up to the Yukon, Northwest Territory, and British Columbia border so far. And we're starting to see more heat activity into BC at times. Fine fuel moisture codes. Where are we going with our fine fuels? We're still seeing southern Saskatchewan looking very dry for fine fuels. Of course, southern BC getting drier for fine fuels. Northeastern BC getting a little drier for fine fuels this week. Where are we going this week with fine fuel moisture code, for example? Northern Manitoba looking bad. Northern Saskatchewan looking bad until you get to this area where the low has really dumped a lot of rain. But just outside that low, we have the fine fuels. Now these winds have been drying the fine fuels out. That's bad news. Dry over on the North BC side, all the way down to the Peace, over on the Alberta Peace side as well, and down towards Grand Prairie. Down southern British Columbia, seeing fine fuel moisture code getting drier and drier and drier in some places. We just had some really hot weather this weekend. Even though it was snowing up north here, we still had some of these areas getting 32 degrees. I think Castlegar nearly hit 33 on Saturday, right? So it set an all-time record for Castlegar. And we're having a look at where our fine fuel moisture is. So we're going to look at each one of these. Sorry about this. So we'll look at each one of these maps sort of individually here. I'm going to take you through. So what's fine fuel moisture code? That means the needles that are on the ground. That means little sticks and twigs and blades of grass and the fine fuels. Exactly what it sounds like, okay? That's probably a simple one to grasp here. Let's look at the Duff moisture code. Now, what is Duff moisture code referring to? The Duff layer is the organic layer between either rock or gravel and the top of the earth. So it's like, what do the plants grow out of? They grow out of the organic layer, the Duff layer, right? So you can see the Duff moisture code starting to get drier, which means fires will take and live in the ground a lot easier in central BC, in the Caribou. We've had quite a bit of rain, so here we are on this side of BC, looking very good for us, as well as the coastal. I mean, it's green and wells suddenly now. It's starting to explode with green plants, and it's rained a lot this weekend. Just to give you the full idea, we hit 30 degrees Celsius there last week. We actually hit a high of 30 here in Wells, bang on. Had wind gusts up to 35. And 25 mils of precipitation. Pretty good. But from 30 to 0.7, we had a 30-degree spread nearly this week in our temperatures. So that's pretty hard on the bones for an old turd like me. Once you get into the boreal forest and up into Saskatchewan and Manitoba, you're getting into dry conditions into the ground, right? So that will help fires live in the ground, which means they may go quiet for a day, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, even over a winter. But if they're in dry Duff layers, they're finding things that are keeping them burning. There's hot spots in there. There's hot spots. So the Duff layer moisture code would kind of help us determine what are the likelihood that hot spots will be successful in surviving, even if weather puts them down or they cool off for the night or whatever. Duff layer really dry up towards Yellowknife. Not exciting. So what's the drought code? What are the drought conditions in Western Canada? We need more rain in the Caribou. We need more rain in the Chilcotin. We need more rain down to Kamloops. But a lot of southern BC looking pretty good. It's not really until you get to that northern third where you're starting to see, again, over by the Peace, I should say, in the east, there's drought up there. Amazingly, the Yukon is drier than it should be right now and into Alaska. And then look at how dry it's been all the way up to the north, almost to Fort McMurray here. And then again, southern prairies are in drought. Farmers are screaming for water. That's a whole other discussion. The farmers need the water bad right now, and they're not getting it. They're not getting it at all. Should I put my face back in the picture here? Let's do that. Except I'll make my face smaller. Drought conditions persisting in most of Western Canada, British Columbia being maybe the bright spot. However, there are some concerning trends beginning in the areas that are the driest typically. That's where it's going to start. The initial spread index. So say there's a lightning strike. How fast will the lightning pick up and move? How fast will fire burn once, you drop something on the ground there that's smoking? Does it catch on fire or not? Favorably, mostly for BC. Fires might crawl around and do things here. So we have 11.3. For example, so how far can it go? how far can it go easily? So, but look where the initial spread index is, and we had so much lightning in northern Manitoba last night. I think we're going to see a bunch of new fires pop up there, especially if they start getting a few warmer, drier days, get some more sunshine on the ground there. There's that entire realm that circles where this low is sitting today. That's just in for a bad time. You can see where the rain has gone through Alberta for the most part and helped ease things there, at least where things aren't as dry, at least on the surface, but then maybe down a little deeper. They're getting into drought condition nonetheless. A little bit better for northern BC, a little bit better for the Peace there and up to Fort Nelson. Definitely areas like Prophet River, you're seeing the chance that if you drop a spark, that it could spread quite fast and get out of control quite fast and spread. What's the buildup index then? The buildup index is all these things that we just talked about, but in one format. So it's kind of like, to me, the best fire danger indicator in terms of conditions. It looks at all those categories we just looked at, kind of puts them all into one category. And what are we seeing? We're seeing the BUIs up above 115 in some places through Saskatchewan. It's pretty high in northern BC. That's into the extreme still. That reminds me of 2023 when I was up there. I mean, it doesn't seem like that pattern is changing anytime soon. It seems like this whole region is drying out. A prediction I made a long time ago is like, well, what climate change does is it keeps moving things further north, right? So what you're going to see now is that the forest type that's up here is getting too many days of heat, too many days of dry, too much lightning. It's getting a more southern behavior, and the weather is trending this way more and more and more. And so what are we seeing now? We're seeing that the forest type that is in these locations is now the wrong forest type. Okay, it's adapted for a long time to fit specific climate, and at least for now, it wants to burn off. We're seeing this in southern BC. Well, you look at the BC interior, areas like around Kamloops that are quite desert-like. Well, can that desert-like behavior continue to spread inside the province? I argue yes. I argue we could see the Caribou become more and more like the Chilcotin and more like the North Thompson and Kamloops area and whatnot over time. That Williams Lake could become more like Kamloops over time. This isn't a whack prediction either, because people have told me in the science world that they think I'm 100% correct on that, and I've been saying this for a long time. So we have the wrong forest fuel in a lot of the north of Canada now, the boreal forest, and the only way it can resolve itself is to burn it off. There may be, when, in 100 years from now, the forest types may be a little different as you go further and further north. You may see broadleaf forests in Ontario show up more and more to the north, for example. You may see southern animals show up more and more to the north. You may see southern weather conditions like we've been seeing now the last 3, 4, 5 years, more and more up here, become a thing further and further north. So the BUI index is terrible. We're in bad shape there for the BUIs. I mean, look at these reds. Not good. Even northern Ontario. I think as you go a little bit further to the east, you're looking better and better and better. The fire conditions aren't that bad out there. We don't really have much for wild stories. There was a Churchill's Fall stories, I think, there last week. But other than that, there's not been much for wildfire stories as you get kind of past, especially like this line. If you drew a line from like Moosonee down to Parry Sound, there's not been too much past this a lot of the time. There's been some moments where Quebec's looked a little drier than it has been. But what are we seeing for fire weather index? Well, a little cooler, right? But we're seeing a lot of wind still today and tomorrow in the prairies. We're seeing a lot of wind out there, so that is driving fire behavior. It's still very, there's no humidity in the air. It's very dry out there. So we're seeing still fire conditions persist despite the fact that temperature is down some, and we would like to have seen that temperature being down come with more humidity. And we're hoping that cloud cover and maybe some of the thunderstorms that are coming through can drop some rain to at least temporarily cool things off, although we've been concerned because there's thunderstorms every day between now and Wednesday, still yet continuing on somewhere in Western Canada. We looked at all that last night, so we're not going to talk about that today. Headfire intensity. What's the intensity? If that fire gets up and runs, how crazy is it going to be? Well, you're going to see a lot of rank 5 and 6 behavior still in these fires that come up along through central Manitoba, the area south of the Thompson there, through Flin Flon area, out to our Wolf Fire, seeing a little bit better conditions on a few other spots, but really across the target area for our fires. Here's an example where it's a little bit better on some of those fires, and maybe that's why those ones by the Kenora fire by the Ontario border there is not looking too active today. So how intense is the head going to be? And it gives you a kilowatt per minute there. It looks like Headfire Intensity. But really what we're looking at to me is like if you're getting into this reds and this dark brown color, whatever this is, I don't know, it's like a dark red or a blood red or something, whatever that is. You call that color, I don't know. There's like a name for every color. I don't know like any of them. To me, that's where you might be seeing fires that stand up and are, up over the trees. They're fully taking the trees. Maybe the fire is standing up considerably over top of the height of the tree even, right? So that's like the rank 5 and 6 fire behavior, this pretty extreme behavior, not good. So the rate of spread, how many meters per minute can this fire spread? Looks like 25 to 40 meters in some places, right? Mostly 25 today. I think that's because of the, a little bit cooler conditions. I think that this has been probably more extreme in days past. But yeah, I mean, those fires can really move. And it looks like down in the piece, we still see some of that. We see some of that on this whole trend up towards Yellowknife. What's your likelihood of crown fires? It's all in that same stretch mostly, with a little gap for where the low passed through on its way through Alberta on Saturday and Sunday. We still have, the risk that we could see some crown fires even into the Yukon. That's fires that stand up and run. So, to me, that's like rank 5, 6 is the best way to describe that. What's rank 5, 6, Joey? Well, it's crown fires. That's when it gets as bad as it can get. That's what we're looking at. So other than that, we're not seeing precipitation through any of our target zones. All of that precip that's falling in the next bunch of hours today is up where that low is spread it out now. We've seen some precip move through our target zone. This has come, like I said last night, it's come a little bit further north than it was maybe predicted, and it seems to have had some beneficial effect on that fire there for the most part. BC drying out and will be throughout the week. So I hope that explains a little bit where things are at for fire danger and potential in Western Canada. Please hit like, share, subscribe. Thanks to everybody who has donated to the channel. If you buy me a coffee, I'll love you for it, or become a channel member. There's a lot of people who already have. You're the reason why I've become so prolific. I appreciate you all for keeping me going. I really do. Okay, friends, take care out there. Be safe and stay brave. One thing I want to get through, I think, before I leave today is I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not into like freak out viral video creation. If you've noticed, I've generally avoided that. I'm not trying to scare you. If anything, I'm trying to reassure you a little bit that, some of these stories are pretty alarming. They're pretty scary. Sometimes they're pretty sad. It's what we have to deal with. This is the reality. I want you to see the reality for what it is, so that when you have to deal with it, you accept it, that this is the new reality. So I'm not trying to make you scared. I think that's a useless emotion to have. That's how I feel about it. I want you to be prepared. I want you to talk to your community members. I want you to be really realistic of like, what's the chance that our town could burn down? Let's get together and start figuring some things out. And have every contingency plan ready. I want to promote a culture of warfare. We're here to fight. We're here to win. And for some of us, winning means running. For some of us, winning means fighting. However that looks for you, I want you to be ready and brave and know that we're with you, that your community is with you, that your country is with you, your province is with you. If you're watching this and you're evacuated right now out there, we're with you. That's why we're talking about it. We feel your pain and suffering, and we feel anger for the fact that this is the reality that we have to deal with, and we want that to motivate us positively to be ready to fight, to be ready to win, to be ready to survive. Okay, friends, see you next time.